What is the best beginner set in Unmatched of all time? Let's see. So today I'll be ranking all of those sets, all of those juicy sets that you see on the shelf, because for you beginners it might be so complex now to decide which set to get. There are so many of them. So today let me help you analyze all of those sets, and maybe you will decide which one you want to jump into and buy. Enjoy! Battle of Legends Volume 1. This set is pretty simple, characters are no complicated at all. Maps are very simple, no special gimmicks here. 2 maps, very interesting battlefields to play. 4 characters, which are very basic, not like complicated mechanics here. King Arthur is just very control base, very solid character with very safe stats. Alice is just hitting for big numbers. Sinbad is also hitting for big numbers while also going very fast. And the only character that is more complex in the box is Medusa. Medusa is more complex only because she needs to control the battlefield with her harpies, and instead of smacking damage like other characters in this box, you actually need to think a little. You can smack damage with her, but it's not as consistent as with all of those previous characters. So Battle of Legends Volume 1, very good set for beginners, probably the best S tier 1 and one of the best sets in Unmatched ever. Robin Hood Bigfoot. This set is also pretty great for beginners. I would say this is more interesting one than Battle of Legends Volume 1, objectively. However, if you will buy this box, remember to also have another one. You can have Battle of Legends Volume 1, you can have other sets. Why you need 2 other sets to enjoy this one? Because if you will just got Robin Hood Bigfoot, this set will be absolutely terrible to play, because this matchup is very one-sided, no matter what. You will play 5 games with them and then you will see why it's so one-sided. So remember to also get another set. And yeah, Bigfoot is basically another character who has very solid stats, like King Arthur. No special like gimmicks, crazy abilities here. His win condition is pretty easy. He just wants to block a lot and smack big damage. He's very safe and very fun, very simple. Robin Hood is the first character that I would say is more complex, because he is pretty difficult to pilot because of his low HP. Also, he needs to always risk his life, and some players might not like that. However, if you like the challenge and taking risks, then Robin Hood is a character for you for sure. So this set, absolutely. Next set is Cobble and Fog. This set is one of the most like famous sets from Unmatched, from what I understand, because the theme is so great in this set, brother. It's so great. However, I would not recommend it for beginners, like at all. This set overall is very challenging. Out of 4 characters in this box, only one character I would consider actually simple, and that's Sherlock Holmes. Because Sherlock Holmes, and he is still very challenging. Sherlock Holmes is based around guessing what opponent will be playing and what opponent has in hand, which might be difficult for the newer players, especially more characters you will get. And then you got Invisible Man, who is very hard to play because new players will not know how to even finish the opponent with the damage. He is very sneaky and needs to count his damage like almost no other hero. Then you got Jekyll and Hyde, and that's pretty difficult character who needs to constantly decide if he wants to be the bad side, like big damage side, or defensive side. It's pretty difficult here. Much more difficult than Small and Big Alice from the first set. And then we got Dracula, who is the most difficult character from the set, because he doesn't really play the game as you would imagine to play. You need to wait, gather cards, be more thinky, and constantly make decisions about every single card you play, and overall it's pretty difficult to play him because you need to like wait until you will be able to one-shot your opponent with one specific card beast form, and that's not good for the beginners. I would say some players might just be confused how to even pull up this combo, and yeah, that's why I think this set is one of the worst for now for beginners, and I will honestly put it somewhere on the D tier, probably. Then we got first license set in the whole game, which some of you might be very excited for. This is the Jurassic Park set Raptors versus InGen. This set might be very interesting for some players, however, I wouldn't say this is the beginner set at all. First of all, you need to be very lucky to even get this set because license expired like I don't know 3-4 years ago. So now if you want to buy this set, it's very expensive, and if you will even get it, the characters in this box are very difficult. Like I would say get this set if you will find it at the good price. However, I would save it for later if you are actually like sure that you want to dive into Unmatched for sure, because you get one map that has a gimmick. This gimmick is to push opponent out of one space to another into some, I would say, cage in the middle of the map, and that might be pretty confusing for some players and also pretty toxic. Raptors are very difficult to pilot. They have almost no defenses, and it's overall a character that has 3 figurines and 3 health bars. This character wants to just go and kill the opponent from the very beginning. However, it's not as simple as I described. You need to know how to action gain, how to discard, how to boost, how to save your actions, when to play your actions. Very difficult character. If you will not like get grasp on it, you will just get blasted with everybody, and that's so bad. Then we got Robert Muldoon, InGen. InGen is he's even worse for the beginners. He is like I said, Medusa was this control type of hero, and Muldoon is even more control because now not only you need to control your little like warriors, you need to also place traps into strategical points on the map, which is very difficult for the beginners. Like beginners will build this probably very straightforward bunker, and then they run out of traps and will be like, oh, why is nobody stepping into my traps? And that might be a problem. So this is pretty difficult set, very unique also. However, I would also place it lower like this. Then we got Buffy set. Buffy set is even more rare than Jurassic Park set. However, I think you can find them at the similar price. And Buffy set honestly is awesome beginner set. One of the best out there. Characters are very simple. Both maps are just awesome and they have no special mechanics. They are just big battlefields with fun theme. Very vampire type theme, which is so cool, so fun, and very unique in this game. You have very straightforward fighters. You have Buffy that you can play to, like, she's basically like Bigfoot, but now you can add your cards to the deck, which is pretty fun. It's not that difficult, it's just fun. Angel is just a character who just goes in and hit for big numbers, and that's it. Spike is more difficult, however, you also can just play him normally, which is just hit big numbers. And Willow is another character who big hit numbers, but now you have a little gambling to that with your cards, which I think some people might find very fun. I recommend this set so much. The only thing that is keeping me from recommending it to beginners is the price. Like, price is absolutely crazy for this set, and I cannot imagine beginner buying this set unless he loved the theme and loved Unmatched. So I would place it one place below Battle of Legends Volume 1 and Robin Hood Bigfoot. However, I think this set overall would be S tier beginner set, if not for the price. Then we got Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. This set is very, very, very fun. Both characters are awesome, and I think for beginners, it might be also very interesting. However, I also would recommend this set only for players who already own at least one set and already know how to play the game. So I would recommend do this little mix-up of buying Robin Hood Bigfoot, if you can find one, and buy Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. This is one of the coolest combinations you can get for the beginners, because the characters in Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf are also pretty simple, except one thing. Little Red. Little Red might be very confusing for the beginners. It's not confused. She doesn't really have a confusing mechanic, but it might be confusing for new players how to win the game with her, because her whole ability is to play cards in the proper order to activate proper effects. This is pretty fun. It's awesome like mechanic and very replayable and versatile. But I think beginners might be lost in while playing this character. That's why I think if you are buying this set, buy another one to learn Unmatched to play some games with the simpler characters like Beowulf and Bigfoot, because Beowulf is just getting points when he's getting hit, and then he can activate his effects on the cards, which might be very powerful, but that's also pretty simple. So first of all, play with the easier characters like Beowulf, Robin Hood, and Bigfoot, and then go play Little Red, and you will out of nowhere understand what's going on. This is the set that I would say is in the middle. However, it's closer to the simpler side than to the difficult side, because I think Beowulf is overall pretty simple. It's just you are being injured, and you can activate more things because you take advantage of taking damage. And Little Red, yes, very hard to control and to win games at the beginning, but overall she's like 5 fighters in one fighter, and I love it here. Another thing that might be kinda bad about this set is the map. Map introduces doors that you need to use one movement to open and close. I don't really like this mechanic. I think it's overcomplicated. However, you can totally buy this set, play on this map without the doors, and if you feel like, you can play with the doors, which are not as like game changing as pushing the opponent out of the one space to another, like with the Raptor set. Then we got first Marvel set. So all of you Marvel lovers might actually like start to listening to the video. And this is Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen is the set that introduced Daredevil, Bullseye, and Elektra. I think this set is not even close to be beginner friendly. Unfortunately, it's here. First of all, Daredevil is pretty challenging as a fighter. His deck is very simple, however he relies on going for this infinite deck with his card Devil of Hell's Kitchen, and for some beginners that might be very complicated because they might attack with the card that take cards back from the discard pile in the wrong time, so opponent now is cancelling them and they cannot like take those cards back. They're being fatigued, and I think this character is overall pretty bad for the beginners. Bullseye is, in my opinion, the simplest character in the box. He's just having very insane range. He can hit you from 5 spaces away, which is very cool, and and he just throws objects at you, cards, and he needs to line up them in the proper combination to deal actually respectable damage. And I think while concept of the character is simple, I think this is similar case like that. I think you will just be confused how to even line up those cards to win the combat, because if you want to deal respectable damage as Bullseye, you need to win the combat. And that might be pretty difficult for beginners if they don't know what they're doing. And the last character is Electra. She's one of the most unique characters in the game. The character that can die and then revive with the whole like deck being reshuffled, which has his advantages and disadvantages. The biggest the biggest disadvantage is to understand how to play the hero, because beginners will not know how to even pilot this very weak on the first like look deck, and they will just probably get killed, because Electra overall has very small health bar to recompensate for her revive mechanic, and also people will not understand how to use ninjas properly, so I think this set is absolutely bad for the beginners. I place it here. Next set is Redemption Row. Redemption Row is definitely simpler Marvel set that has Kitchen in my opinion. However, it still has its good and bad. First of all, we got character Moon Knight. Moon Knight is the simplest character, I would say, from the set, except he is simple, but not the simplest for sure. Now, when I think about this, Moon Knight, like he changes forms basically every single turn. He's going from Moon Knight to Kanshu to Mr. Knight. Moon Knight is going for 2 additional spaces at the beginning of his turn. Kanshu is attacking for 2 additional points of damage, and Moon Knight is blocking for 1 additional point on defenses. So you can see this is the cycle of drawing cards on one form, attacking another form, and then doing combos in another turn. This is how character works, and I think for the beginners it's not that bad. However, it is very difficult, because now his deck is very forgiving, but if you will just waste your cards on the wrong form, you will lack damage in other form, or you will just don't know how to use your actions in other form, which might be complicated. The thing is, he's very forgiving for the beginners, so I would recommend it if you like this little control of the madness thing. Then we got Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider might be the most annoying character in this set for beginners, because his mechanic, while simple, he doesn't really win games if you want. However, still, I think he is pretty straightforward. You just go in while burning everyone on the path you are just going through. You are spending your resource, which is Hellfire, to do additional effects, and I think in those effects you might find some difficulty in the character. However, it's not as bad as you think. And then there's Luke Cage, who is another character who wants to smack big numbers. However, he has a very cool thing, which is 2 passive armor. This is a huge thing for beginners, because beginners might like this ability because they don't really need to understand how to block properly now, so they will just take advantage of the ability, and I think that's very good. Also, maps or Marvel maps have those tokens that can be used when adjacent to them, which might change some games in the good or the bad direction, like in your favor or opponent's favor. However, I don't think they're complicated. So maps overall for Marvel maps are great. Then we are going back to normal sets, and we are talking about Battle of Legends Volume 2. This set it's good for competitive players, first of all. This is very competitive player favorite set, because 3 out of 4 characters in this box are very good in competitive game, while not being very good for the beginners for sure. First of all, we got Wukong. Wukong is, he spawns his copies on the board at the cost of 1 health, and then his copies can play the whole deck he has, and that's basically the whole hero. However, his deck is a little bit tricky, because while it looks like you want to just constantly smack damage, and that's what you're doing for the most part, you need to know how to bait the opponent, and it's not as difficult overall, I would say Wukong is he's pretty respectable fighter, while also being very good at beginners, because his gimmick is not as difficult. Yeah. Then we got Yenenga. Yenenga is a character that controls the battlefield, controls her health bar, control the damage that is flowing her way, and can take advantage of her huge action gains to just destroy the opponent. I don't think this character is good for beginners, because you are not playing around attacking, you're more playing around setting up a certain combo, and if this combo will work, it's actually fine. But if you don't know how to do combo, you will just lose cards, and yeah, and beginner players will not understand how to properly and when to split damage between archers, so Yenenga might die pretty quickly, while archers will be dying pretty quickly. So this is not a character for beginners. Bloody Mary is a character who goes in and wants to action gain with 3 cards in hand, because that's the condition. She's the aggressive fighter, and she's also not good for beginners, because beginners don't really like to play on 3 hand size, I would imagine, because it's not safe. So Bloody Mary is also not safe for them, and if they will try to play that way, they might be just totally disappointed, because they will be having, like, I don't know, 2 attacks in hand and 1 defense, and then they will go for 3 action, and then opponents will just destroy them, and that will be sad for them. So definitely not. And then we got Achilles. Achilles is simple on paper, but when it comes to practice, he is not as simple. He has Patroclus, who he wants to kill as quick as possible to get to his ultimate form, which is attacking for +2 and drawing 1 card after every combat, which is pretty powerful. This is very simple. He has very simple deck and all. However, the minigame of killing Patroclus and opponent knowing that he doesn't want to kill Patroclus is more difficult than it seems, so I'll just leave it with that. It's not a simple character. However, he's not as complex as Yenenga in Bloody Mary. And map of this set introduces the +1 things, the high ground, and that might mess with some people, I would believe. So this set, while being great to the competitive players, it's not as good for the beginners. I would buy this set at least if you have 1 beginner set, which I would imagine is Battle of Legends Volume 1 or Buffy. If you have, or those 2 sets, Little Red versus Beowulf and Robin Hood Bigfoot. Then you can go to Battle of Legends Volume 2, but if that's your first set, I think you should start with the easier one. That's why I'm placing it this tier. Then we got another Jurassic Park set, second one of the 2 sets. This one might be very tempting for the beginners, even for the price that it currently costs. T-Rex versus Dr. Sattler. T-Rex is very big minifigure that probably everyone wants, and everyone wants to run as T-Rex, I can imagine. But as the beginner set, it's not even close to being beginner friendly. As well in the price category and in the difficulty category of the fighters. Overall, T-Rex is a character who just wants to go in and smack damage. However, getting to the opponent is very tricky, because she has 1 movement. She has some weird rulings about moving, because she's covering 2 spaces at the same time. So she's attacking from 2 spaces away, and that's, for some people, that might be weird at the beginning. And her deck is overall melting you down constantly. You're on the timer, and beginners might not like that, to being under pressure, which this character requires. She basically is applying pressure, and yeah, I don't think that's good character for the beginners. It's just pressuring you too much, to the point that it might be not fun, because some players might be like, I don't even have time to think how to get to you, and you're constantly running away. It's annoying, so it might be not cool. Dr. Sattler is even worse because while in the experienced hands, she might just be absolute tank. For beginners, it might be weird to stack up all of her little tokens because she has tokens that she can then take out of the board to activate her effects like healing, damage, all of that. But she also wants to save them on board because some of her effects are dealing damage if opponent is close to those tokens. So there is some decision making of if you want to save the tokens, like use them later, use them now, use them for this card, You know, this is kind of difficult, and she is not forgiving because she has very very bad statistics in her deck. Like her deck is has very low numbers if you are not using those tokens. So, and map is very cool, but I think fighters are not beginner friendly at all. If you want to buy the set, it should be not your first priority. Then we got Houdini Genie. Houdini Genie is one of my favorite sets of all time, but it's not beginner friendly at all. Both of those fighters are... You need to discover the playstyle, and if you are a competitive player or skilled player, you just play game a lot, you already know those playstyles. But beginners will just get confused. Why is this deck built like that? Why is the character not working? And that's because if you play Genie, for example, you need to build up certain cards in hand, you need to overdraw yourself, then you need those specific cards to be in play in the proper order on defense and on offense. Then you need to know how to use your ability, which gives you action if you sacrifice a card. And then you need to know that you need to play 3 wishes first, 2 times at least, to destroy opponent hand, set your numbers to the 4s. There is too many things. No. This is not a good character for beginners. Houdini is the same. While he's simpler, he's also pretty challenging. He has this boost mechanic that allow him to, like, if he will boost his movement, he can go whenever he wants. However, he also has those symbols, maybe not symbols, but effects closer to the boosts. So he needs to also line them up in the proper order, and it might be very bad. I remember that in one of my first videos, one person said that Houdini is pretty simple. But I disagree, because if you just go in and smack Houdini and waste your cards and your boosts in the wrong way, you will just lack damage. But if you know how to boost everything and how to play all of your cards, then you are just broken. So there is this order of very bad decisions on Houdini and very good decisions of Houdini. Here is trash side and here is broken side. So Houdini, awesome character, Genie also awesome character, but unfortunately this set is just not built for beginners. Those characters are just too complex. Skip this set, get it after having like 3 sets and decent knowledge of the game. And then we are going back to Marvel. We got For King and Country. For King and Country has 3 characters that have very interesting gimmicks. First of all, being Black Widow. Black Widow has, instead of her yellow cards, scheme cards that you can play instantly, she has missions. And if you want to play effect of the mission, you need to complete the requirements, which are your tasks. Those tasks can be on the opponent's space, be on your space, be adjacent to opponent, have that many cards in hand, deal damage. She has some things that needs to be completed before playing the mission, and her missions are the whole deck, because the rest of her deck is just low number attacks and low number defenses. She can take missions back to play more of them, but overall this character is not for beginners at all because of the slow stats. Like, if you want to learn Unmatched, you don't want to be punished for playing the character wrong like right away, so Widow is not a way. Then we got Black Panther. Black Panther is also a very unique character. He's very annoying character, in fact. He's stealing cards from the opponent and then he's using them to boost his attacks, defenses, movement, everything. He is very, very, very simple, I would say. If you want to like just play the character who steals opponent cards and then use it to your advantage, he is for you. He's very simple, no difficult cards in deck. The only difficult thing about him is the stealing mechanic, but I think it's explained like enough, and there is not that much like trickery around it. You just need to sit down, play the cards that say steal opponent card, then boost with that, you are happy. And then there is Winter Soldier, who is simpler version of Daredevil, I would say. Winter Soldier has very high attacks and very low defenses, while also having infinite deck because he can play one card, reprogram, which allow him to take 3 cards from the discard pile, which means he can have infinite deck. And he's simpler than Daredevil because his ability, Brainwashed, will not allow you to cancel him. So you will not cancel his taking cards back from this card pile. That's why he's simple and very, very beginner friendly. And his deck overall is just smack big damage and take cards back from this card pile. That's it. And also map of this set is very, very, very fun, in my opinion. One of the best in the whole Unmatched. So fun. So yeah, this set I would say is probably the most beginner friendly set out of every single set in the like Unmatched Marvel sets. So go pick it up. Then we got Teen Spirit Marvel set. This one seems very, very beginner friendly. However, it's not at all. I would argue this is second, above all first most difficult one in the whole Unmatched, in the whole like Marvel Unmatched, and that's crazy. We got Miss Marvel, whose ability is basically jumping off. She can jump 1 space away and attack from 2 spaces away. So she can hit you. She can back off and hit you from that range. The problem is her deck. Her deck is very, very unforgiving. You are a character that likes to smack big numbers, like we already know some other characters, and that's it. However, she has requirements that are difficult to meet for some people, I would say, because a lot of her cards are just, if you are in the more zones than the opponent, this card can be boosted. If you're in the least like other zones than opponent, this card can be this, and there's a lot of things like that. So while ability and concept is simple, in practice you constantly looking at those zones and be like, okay, where do we go? Okay, where I need to go. So that's pretty difficult. However, she's the most simple from the set. Then we got Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger are another character that like to take risks. They are similar to Raptors, where there are not 3 figurines but 2 figurines, and both of them have different abilities. Have different abilities. Dagger is giving you action gains when hitting for at least 2, like dealing at least 2 damage, and Cloak is giving you discards, if also dealing at least 2 damage. So you need to know how to combo the opponent, and it's more difficult than you think. And then there's a Square Girl. Square Girl introduces the small fighters, which can occupy the space in like more numbers than than a single fighter or sidekick. And those squares alone are introducing so much new rollings that I think for the beginners it might be too complex. Map is awesome, it's great, it's so thematic, but unfortunately 2 out of 3 fighters in this set are just too complex for me to recommend it for beginners. It's awesome set for me, in my opinion. Objectively it's not a good set, but I I honestly love it. So I think I will just place it here. Yeah. Then we got Tales to Amaze, the set that introduces cooperation mode. You have 4 characters and 2 scenarios that you can play single player and co-op. We got Annie Christmas, who just wants to be smack big numbers when she's lower, and her deck is pretty simple, very solid, very good character for beginners. Then we got Nikola Tesla. This character is not for the beginners. He's very complicated. However, I think he's on the similar level as I discussed Little Red, where you want to place cards in the proper order. Tesla wants to spend his coils to activate strong effects. He has 2 coils, so you need to recharge them and then use them. And he's all about good decisions. And if you like this type of playstyle, you can totally go and play him. But I think for beginners, it might be not too good because Tesla is just overall introducing almost every single effect in the game, like present at that time of Unmatched. So he might be difficult. Then we got Golden Bat. Golden Bat is just a powerhouse of high stats, and that's it. He's great for beginners. The only thing that is bad about him is him not having too many blocks. But I think for beginners, sure, he's great. And then we got Jill Trent. Jill Trent is very tanky. She has this little cool decision making of, do I want to be on the gadget like tonic side or on the blaster side, and she's baiting the opponent and all of that. However, I think she might be played by beginners, but the skill ceiling of the character is very high, like so high, while skill floor is acceptable. And then you got 2 scenarios to play in cooperation, which is Mothman and Martial invaders, aliens basically. And I think Mothman scenario is perfect. One of the best balanced scenarios in the whole Unmatched. It's so fun. You just smack yourself with Mothman, and that's so fun. Martial Invader is more annoying because he's running around spawning aliens, so there's more to manage, more cards to discard. It might be more annoying. But overall, this set is also pretty good for beginners. The only thing that I would like take from it is Tesla. Tesla is not for beginners. However, rest of the characters, sure, this set is going here. And then we got one of my favorite sets of all time, which is Brains and Brawn Marvel set. This set is, in my opinion, also pretty mediocre for beginners. However, I recommend to buy it even as a beginner player because those characters can be learned pretty easily. She-Hulk, while difficult at the first glance, you will get grasp of her pretty quickly, and she's also very like she will maybe not teach you, but show you. Her deck will show you how to play her very quickly because she has very like great stats, huge health bar, great blocks, great attacks, a lot of powerful effects. You will quickly understand how to play her. So cool. Spider-Man is basically the best character for the beginners because his ability is telling you. Opponent basically needs to tell you what number is on his like card he's playing, so you can prepare for that and also understand what card is probably going your way. So it's the best character for beginners. And then there's Doctor Strange, who on paper is very difficult, but in practice you might just play him as a normal fighter without any like toxic playstyles, and also he's pretty simple and very fun at the same time and he's the most difficult in the set, but having fun with, you know, replacing your cards, throwing them away to discard pile, throwing opponent cards, throwing him away, like being this wizard, mystic wizard, powerful and all on the battlefield is very, very, very fun. And I think Doctor Strange, while difficult, might be mastered pretty quickly. So I recommend him. I recommend this set for the beginners for sure. It's not as high as some other sets, but for Spider-Man and She-Hulk, I need to place it here. Then we got Sun's Origins, the Japanese set, the first of Japanese sets we are getting. And unfortunately, this set is as difficult almost as Houdini Genie, unfortunately, I need to tell you. Because Oda Nobunaga, first character, it's like playing Raptors, which we already know is difficult. But now you need to add some other aspect, which is flanking. Oda basically needs to know how to place his samurais every turn to take the best advantage of the effects on his cards. And even then he's pretty weak and maybe not uninteresting to play, but pretty challenging to play, so I don't recommend him. And then we got Tomoe Gozen. Tomoe is a very solid character, very good stats, but very sneaky stats. If you don't know how to play Tomoe, which is totally a thing for beginners, like they will not understand what's going on probably, then she's very weak. But if you understand her, she's so powerful because now you know how to use every single card. But overall, Tomoe is, I would say, designed for like advanced players, so I'm not recommending this set for the beginners. If you like Japanese theme, yes, sure, go for it, but grab other set in between while buying this one to just have easier characters and not just be, oh, this Tomoe is dying too quickly, oh, this Oda is dying too quickly, I don't like Unmatched. So yeah, this set is here. Then we got the most complex set in the whole game for now, so I don't know if I will even bother describing the characters, but I will try in the simple way. Slings and Arrows. This set is crazy. Shakespeare he basically writes a lines with his cards, and if he will make even one mistake, the line is destroyed and no effects will be triggered. He has very bad stats. He's dying too quickly, and you need to know how to even survive with him, let alone like winning with him. Then we got Hamlet, who is basically hurting himself to deal more damage or drawing more cards, so he's overdrawing himself, and yeah, for the beginners it's terrible. Then we got Wayward Sisters, very squishy characters, also free figurines that are placing cards that they're played in the cauldron, and then they're casting spells depending what ingredient on the card they throw into the cauldron. And there are a lot of spells, like there are 4 spells, but knowing when to play a certain spell it's difficult. And they're dying very quickly. And then we got Titania. She has multiple abilities that you are switching constantly between, and she needs to discard them in the proper time, know when to use one in the proper time. Also, she lacks damage if sidekick is dead. This set is not for beginners. It's the worst set for beginners right away. And then we are going to the Witcher set. If you are a fan of Witcher characters, then that's the set for you. We got the first one, Steel and Silver, the set with Geralt, Ciri, and Leshen. I would say this set is it's beginner friendly. It's beginner friendly. First of all, we got Geralt. Geralt is a character with very decent stats, and with the similar thing that Buffy has, which is you get to choose the cards and add them to your deck in the beginning of your turn, so in the beginning of the game. So, and overall his cards are pretty simple. There are some complex ones like getting more actions or triggering the effect when other card opponent played, but overall he's very simple. Like you can easily take this set and play Geralt, you will understand what's going on. Then we got Ciri. Ciri is more complex because overall she needs to gather sources to be more powerful. However, this gimmick is pretty simple. Basically, if you play the card with the source, which is this blue bubble, and place it then on the discard pile, you are basically adding +1 source, and for every card like that, you have more sources, and then you can activate cards that say, if you have 4 sources, this card value is 7 or something like that. And this is pretty simple. It's very, very simple. The biggest problem is to just getting a lot of sources, but as a character, she is very simple. As concept, she is simple. And then we got Leshen. Leshen is the most complex in the box, probably. His ability is very simple, but it's similar problem to T-Rex, where he's moving only one space, and most of his movement will be coming from him attacking and moving the opponent, and then his ability is adding +3 to the second attack he throws at you. So that's pretty respectable. However, I think here Leshen might be more confusing to beginners. So if you buy this set, just play Ciri and Geralt at the beginning, and then just go to Leshen and try to discover, explore how to play him. He's very fun, but you need to understand the basics. But overall, and then you got 2 maps which are pretty fun, pretty easy, and they introduce those those things that you are being thrown from one space to another. But in this map, that's not a problem because you are not being thrown into some pit in the middle of the map. You are just being thrown in the whole middle of the map from the fortifications. So very, very cool set for the beginners. Maybe not the best one, but for sure a great one. And then we got the second Witcher set, which is Realm's Fall. This one is definitely less beginner friendly, I would say. We got Eredin, we got Yennefer Triss, and we got Philippa. All 3 of those fighters are very challenging. First of all, Eredin, he's like Medusa, Electra, or Yenenga, where you are controlling your army, and you need to know when to sacrifice them, when to pull the trap, when whatever. Because if all of your other heroes are dying, all of your small fighters are dying, you are going in range mode, and now you're adding +1 to everything you're doing, which is pretty threatening. However, it's so difficult with his deck. His deck is very unforgiving, and if you don't know when and how when to play defenses, how to play defenses, and when to sacrifice your boys or block for your boys, it's just a nightmare. Then we got Yennefer and Triss. This is the character one of the first characters who introduce control of the opponent hand. They want to burn the opponent hand to eventually deal them damage, and I cannot imagine beginners doing it the proper way, so I will not even bother describing this thing. And then there is Philippa. She is more beginner friendly than other heroes from this box, but she's still difficult. Her effects are very tricky and require opponent to discard cards, so she's also pretty close to this playstyle of keeping the opponent hand size and the lower amount, but with more skillful way. And then she has the ability to draw 4 cards at the end of her turn, which is very powerful, but you need to know how to use it and when to use it. And yeah, this set overall is not for the beginners. You may buy this one with the first Witcher set and then combine, for example, Geralt with Eredin or Ciri with Philippa, fighting together, and then learn Unmatched that way. But if you just want one Witcher set, this is not the way for the beginners, for sure not. Then we got Battle of Legends Volume 3, my favorite set probably of all time for now, at the time of recording this video. And it's pretty difficult one. It's even more difficult than Battle of Legends Volume 2, I would argue. So let's go through it. First of all, we got Blackbeard, who has this mechanic of doubloons. Opponent is basically getting money for attacking him, and then he has a lot of cards that say, yes, you can deal damage to the opponent, but then if he will play doublon, it's not happening. So already you see that there is a lot of this control of damage that being dealt to you, also control of the doubloons, then punishing opponent bad choices, bad mistake, that like bad decision making of spending those money. It's not for the beginners. And also character is like Dracula, where you're building for something more rather than just attacking constantly because you run out of everything. Then we got Pandora. Pandora is another gambling machine where you are just drawing cards from the box at the beginning of the turn, every turn. And then you might even hurt yourself if you will overdraw yourself with those cards. So you need to understand the Pandora's box deck first before understanding the hero and her deck. And her deck is so difficult, so yeah. And then we got Chupacabra, the easiest character from the set. He just goes in and smack, but his cards are very, very low, and he basically needs to discard opponent hand to even deal damage, and that might be challenging. Also, his cards basically are telling you, okay, you need to be in the lower health to actually decent damage, because below 7 health, many effects on your cards are activated, like action gain, healing, values turning to 5, all of that. So you need to be in the lower, you need to play on the low health size, and it's not like any Christmas where you can be 13 opponent 16 and still being +2 fighter. No. Here you need to be 7 or lower, otherwise nothing happens. And then there's Loki, whose whole gimmick is to throwing tricks and the opponent, like basically throwing trash into his hand. Then he needs to play those tricks. If not, you are basically threatening him of playing Ragnarok. Not a thing for the beginners at all. And even the maps are complicated. Venice is simple. However, Santa's Workshop introducing the tracks, or whatever the name is, conveyables, that are moving you at the end of every turn. So you need to know ahead where the conveyor will take you. Not the set for the beginners, unfortunately. I will place it here. It's so fun, but yeah, it's Battle of Legends Volume 3 for a reason. Like, you are buying the simplest one, the first one, then the second, then the third. Like, this is actually a proper order. Next set is Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali. And this is another set I would say is pretty complicated. Bruce Lee is a simple hero. He just goes in and combo you with his jits, while also having good stats. Muhammad, on the other hand, is so difficult. You need to know when to switch stances from your sting like a bee to sting like a bee, to float like a butterfly. One form is pretty defensive, while other is pretty offensive. But the thing is, you need to know when to take advantage of your big damage sting like a bee turn, and while preparing to that, when you are in the float like a butterfly. And yeah, he's pretty simple, but he looks pretty simple when it comes to stats, but overall I would say he's very not beginner friendly. There's too many things happening on his cards, too many decision making. Just don't like skip this set unless you have like at least those basic sets. And then we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Shredder and Krang included. Another big box, probably one of the most exciting one. I would tell it right away, this is one of the best beginner sets there is. Leonardo is pretty simple. You can play around the zones and movement, everything, because his abilities basically move fighter one space. But he's overall just going in, hitting for big numbers and having very good healing and cool blocks. So this is fine. Michelangelo is pretty. He is pretty. He is crazy, like very weird character. When you only have like 3 cards in hand always, this is your maximum hand size, and he just goes in and relies on top deck and can action gain you to death. Pretty fun and also pretty simple. Then we got Raphael. Raphael is just the powerhouse of very high stats, very high health bar, very high blocks, a lot of blocks, and his attacks are very bad, but he overall is built towards this big attack. He just, whenever he lost combat, he goes again. So you can just bait the opponent and get additional actions, which is so fun, and not that difficult, I would say. He's just busted and very powerful, but it's not difficult to play him because you are just constantly baiting the opponent with the small cards, gaining actions, and then attacking them with the big attack, where they are not expecting you to. And then we got Donatello. Donatello is the most complex from the turtles. He is building the inventions, and those inventions are doing some crazy things, so he's more difficult, but I think you can get grasp of him. Overall, he's very solid. Then we got the villains deck. Shredder, kinda difficult. He's placing his like soldiers on the pathways, not on the spaces, on pathways, and then he can activate more powerful effects depending how many soldiers are adjacent to him or to the opponent. He is simple in concept, but he will be more and more difficult the more skilled your opponents will be, because he needs to build up his army, and before that he's very vulnerable, so you need to know how to body block, how to hide yourself, what spaces you want to place the soldiers with. So pretty challenging, but also I would think his deck is pretty simple and easy to understand. You just want to get your action things or just huge attack things and win the game. And then there is Crank. Crank is another gambling. He is rolling a die and adding those numbers or triggering some things depending on what he rolled. And while his deck is pretty simple, this die might be pretty like 50-50, but overall character is simple, like nothing special here. You just need to get lucky, and that's it. And then you got 2 campaigns, a Shredder campaign in New York and Shredder campaign in the Technodrome. Yeah, I like the Shredder one. Shredder one is kinda cool, and then the Technodrome, I think it's undercooked. There's too many discards to consider there. But overall campaigns also very solid. They introduce the minions or whatever mechanic, allies and the henchmen, which are additional cards, additional like allies and henchmen for the opponent that are just helping us or them. So that's pretty cool. And overall, I think this set is pretty cool, but only because you have so many characters that are simple and some that are difficult. Like, if you want to just get one unmatched set and have like the best value out there, this is probably the best one. Remember to get Shredder and Crank while buying this one. So yeah, that's it. And then we got Stars and Stripes. I overall think this one is pretty simple. I don't play this one a lot, so that's why I'm not like telling about this to you. But overall, every single fighter in this set kinda simple, so you can also get it. And that was it, guys. Here is the final list. If you just skip to this part, you sneaky bastard, go watch the whole video. Better subscribe or whatever. But yeah, so I hope now you know which set you should buy, and with that out of the way, consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more Unmatched content. sure, my channel is the way to go. We are very active with this community. We're doing polls, we're doing everything. And if you want to support me, you can support me on YouTube, basically. And I'm so glad all of those money are going for the next Unmatched sets that are coming out. Unmatched set, Rhinestone sets that I can make content about. So thank you supporting my content. And yeah, with that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. Go play Unmatched, go get those sets, and see you in the next one, hopefully. Peace!